Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the Fly With Us podcast. This podcast is bringing the art of self-love, self-care, mental health care and protection, life lessons, love lessons, and everything in between. I'm Lady Bounce.
I am Picket Fence.
We have a special guest with us today, but first, Picket is going to hit us with the Mindfulness Minute for this week.
The Mindfulness Minute says, if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts in heaven and earth will pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who did a job well. Word up.
Wow, that was pretty deep. So our guest today is someone who has done her job very well and has done her job so well that she is now teaching other people how to do what she did. She is a speaker, a self-published author, a mentor, a coach. She has written books on the topics of blended families, womanhood, self-esteem for young children, and even a blueprint for becoming your own published author. She is the bronze winner from Feathered Quill for her children's book. She has 3 awards actually for her children's book. So introducing Ms. Valerie J. Lewis Coleman. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Lady Bounce and Picket Fence. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here on Fly With Us and just talk about the book business. I'm excited to share with your listeners and your viewers what it takes to publish a quality book.
Cool. So first, let's start off by saying, let's say someone has never written a book, but they want to write a book. How does that person get started?
So the writing process in this business is really the easiest process. And I get if you're in that phase, it doesn't feel easy, but the writing is the easiest part. And there's a lot of ways to approach it. For some people, they need to develop an outline. They need to lay out what they want in each chapter. If it's a novel or fiction, who's going to be in it, what they're doing, how it moves the story along. Some people just write what I call free writing, where they just go and whatever comes out, if it's usable for the book, they'll put it in the book. I do more of what's called a jigsaw puzzle, where I have ideas in my mind and I capture ideas as they come to me in my phone, in the notes app in my phone, because I'll see somebody doing something crazy. I'm like, I got to put that in the book. I have a conversation with somebody that's hilarious. I need to put that in the book. Ooh, that's good information. Let me add that to the book. So I have these notes in my app. And then as time progresses and I'm ready to write that into a book, I'll transfer that to a computer and then start piecing stuff together, quite like a jigsaw puzzle. So it really just depends on what style really works for you as the composer. I tell my clients, you need to decide if you're going to handwrite, if you're going to work on the computer, if you're going to record, your voice into some type of device. All of those are tools whereby, you can capture your message, but you got to make sure after you've done that work, you have to edit it. So I want your people to say with me, I must hire a professional editor.
Yes, please.
Lord Jesus.
Please. I had somebody who actually, she wrote a book and she asked me to read it and to give my feedback. So I read it and I gave my feedback. And one of the biggest things as an educator, of course, I see the typo stood out to me like neon lights. So I told her, I said, well, you might want to get this in the hands of a good editor. You got a great story. You got a great this. And she goes, it's been edited 3 times. And I just said, oh.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing with that. More than likely what she did, one of 2 things. She either edited herself. She worked with somebody who wasn't a professional editor and they just read it like Pookie and Ray Ray and them. Or she hired someone who did one level of editing, but there are up to 5 different levels of editing. So even though she may have paid someone to edit it, they may have incorporated the level of editing that she needed. So people need to understand that there's developmental or content editing, or even they go as far as writing coach. They do a lot of work. That's the level of edit that I do. They're doing research, they're adding information, taking out information, moving stuff around, asking you to fill in the blanks. I don't understand this. How did you get from here to there? It's really a deep dive into the manuscript. And that may have been what she needs. Then there's also the line editing or the copy editing, kind of like a newspaper person checking for facts and stats, and making sure you use the right scripture if you got a Bible verse, or if you use the right form, if you're talking about some military document. They do that kind of fact-based type checking. And then the proofreader. Now, the proofreader is one, like you said, looks for the grammatical checks, looks for the errors, the comma versus the colon versus the semicolon, and M dash versus the N dash, and all that other stuff, right? But before those three professionals, and I tell all my clients, you need to use all three. Now, when I edit, I do the first two for my clients, and then I hire somebody else to proofread. Because no matter how much editing and how well I do with the editing, there's going to be things I'm going to miss because I've looked at the manuscript too many times. So I send it to somebody else for a final rough through. But the reader, the author, him or herself, needs to do what's called a self-edit. And then I encourage my clients then to bring in a team of people, which I call power team. My company is Pen of the Writer, and out of Pen of the Writer comes the word power. So I say, get yourself a power team, which is a group of people, your avid reader, who your ideal reader is, someone who's specific to the message of your book, someone who's good in marketing, somebody in business, 5 to 7 people who will read your book and give you feedback, kind of like you did, give you feedback. So now you've got a different set of eyes on it because they'll see things you didn't see. Then you start hiring professionals. So self-edit, team edit, developmental edit, line edit, and then proofreading. So she missed 1, 2, 3, or maybe 4 of them.
Yeah,
Now you talked about a team. What is the price difference in just going straight to a professional or going to a team, and which is better?
So for editing,
yes,
I recommend both. So your team becomes your accountability group. They don't just read it for the sake of editing. They're reading not to edit, but to give you feedback. And I recommend, if you can possibly, with Corona, there's only so much we can do, but do it in person or do it virtually. Read out loud while everybody's reading their own manuscript. Have one person read out loud, taking turns. And you'll find that what happens is things that you think are on the paper or you read as if they're on the paper aren't on the paper. So when you've got 4 or 5 sets of eyes on it, they'll find those kind of things. And then from there, you need to hire the professional. I'm sorry, we said?
I was going to say, so sort of like a script reading, like when it comes to doing a movie.
Yeah, kind of like that, because they're giving you insight. And another good thing about doing a team edit is not only do they find little things you may have missed or overlooked, but also especially if you're doing a novel and they're reading one of the characters' lines, and they might start making hand gestures and goosenecking and finger snapping, they'll really get into it if it's well written. You're like, oh, I should put that in there. So you may find some type of indirect dialogue or some type of narrative or descriptive to add into the storyline, because as the people are reading it, they're feeling it and they're adding in their own stuff. But the teams you typically don't pay. What you do is compensate them by including their name, like in the book on the acknowledgement page, giving them a complimentary copy and maybe a gift card somewhere. But they don't actually get paid. So these are your people who are supporting you and wanting to help you to see you do better. But when you start getting to the professional editors, you pay them. And the highest level edit, the developmental, is most expensive. I know people personally charge up to $15 per typed page. That's double space, 1-inch margins, 12-point font times New Roman, very specific. And then the pricing decreases as you get to the lower level of the edits. But all of them are necessary, so that your book looks like something that was done by a traditional publishing house and not a cousin who just hit submit on Kindle. Let me tell you something. I have seen some junk. If junk was a cuss word, I'd be in trouble. I had to put something in the swear jar. I see junk all the time. And the thing about it is, because I teach my clients as I go along, when they see junk, they send it to me. Girl, look at this book. And they'll send me stuff. It's missing this. It's missing that. Typo here. That's misspelled. Why did they? I said, okay. So, yeah.
How long is that process? Not the process of writing, but the process of editing. How long is that process used?
So part of editing, there's a lot of factors that go into editing. One, the genre, the genre that you're writing in. So like a children's book, a children's picture book, 1,000 words, that won't take long. If you I just had somebody I spoke to today, she's doing 100,000 word novel. I don't have the bandwidth to edit 100,000 words, especially for a novel, which means there needs to be a lot of scene and character development and all the other dynamics that go into that. I don't have the bandwidth to do that. But of course, a 100,000 word book is going to cost you a whole lot more than a 1,000 word children's book. So time is based on the skill set of the editor, the level of edit, because the higher level edit's going to take more time because they're pouring more into it. Like I said, when I do them, I'm researching and everything. And then it depends on how well the manuscript is written, the complexity of the manuscript, if it's written academic versus some type of, something for, like, I'm working on a chapter book for kids as well too. And it's a short book. It's a great read. It's fun. It's easy to edit. So it just depends on how much I like what I'm editing as well. But for me, when I do the deep dive edit, it normally takes me, I'm just going to say anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And I've had books that took me longer than that to edit. Keep in mind that I'm not just doing that one book. I'm doing several books at a time. So I'll work on it for a while, I'll put it down. And sometimes I get so frustrated, I put it down for 2 or 3 weeks. I say, I can't right now, I just can't. And I work on something that I enjoy working on. So there's so many factors. At the end of the day, it depends. Does that sound good? I tell clients to plan for 3 to 6 months of editing at a minimum, incorporating all of the levels of edit. But the more word count you have, the more complex your storyline. Novels tend to take more than nonfiction. Then you can expect to add to that timeline. If somebody tell you they can do it in 2 weeks, the devil is a lie. You spend money on that and get it back. I edited 3 times. I paid for 3. They might have proofread, or here's something else that shiesty people do. I'm not to say that happened to your friend, but they will take your story, drop it into some online crunch machine, and just let it do some minor stuff. Nothing that fresh eyes and reading it and getting the experience you would actually pull out of a story. So there's all kind of ways to get around it. So, but 3 to 9 months, but typically for me, it takes me about 6 to 9, depending upon the complexity of the manuscript.
Okay, so you do something called Pen of the Writer, which is a 2-day workshop. Mm-hmm. So if I'm brand new, I got this idea, Miss Coleman, I want to write a book. Mm-hmm. I come to your workshop. What am I going to learn? What do I take away from your workshop?
So the next event that I'm hosting is the Pen of the Writer Book Fest, or powerbookfest.com. And that is a 2-day event, but only 1 day is geared towards workshops. And I have an expert going to talk about writing. I'm going to be talking about publishing. I have an expert coming in to talk about marketing. And then I'm going to have a panel of authors who are just going to be there to field attendees' questions. If you're coming to a workshop geared, so that workshop is going to hit everything. But of course, I've been doing this for over 20 years. There's no way I'm going to jam pack 20 years of my knowledge into a 1-hour workshop. I'm going to give the clients as much as I can in that 1-hour time, but it's impossible to give everything I know in that short span. But what I like people to walk away with is action items. So I have them, I give them note paper. Okay, now write these things that aha for you, write them down so we can talk about them. If you have questions, I'll answer your questions. I provide resources, so I'll send them to websites, and if they need somebody, I need somebody who translates to Spanish. Okay, well, I have my children's book translated to Spanish. Let me send you to Natalia. I don't know how to pronounce her last name because it is really a Spanish name, but let me forward you to her. So I'll share resources with people in these workshops and give them strategies to help them write, publish, or market their bestseller, depending upon where they are in the process.
I like it. I love it, actually. Yeah. So you have a children's book called Oh, the Things I Can Be When I See Me. What was the inspiration? I know your granddaughters are in the book and they couldn't be happier to be in Grammy's book.
Girl,
what was your inspiration?
My grandbabies, Lyric and Samara, Lamar's daughter and LaShawn's daughter. So, okay. Yes. And so when, they are in different states, so I don't get to see them that often. Matter of fact, I'm gonna see Lyric this weekend. I can't wait. I'm so excited. But when I do get to see them, of course, I want to have, my grandma's name is Mimi. So I want to have all the Mimi time with them. I take them to get mani-pedis. We've been horseback riding, helicopter riding. I've done all kinds of stuff with them. Massages, whatever things that I should have done when I was younger and waited to do when I was in my years. Now I'm doing it for them, right? So they can experience and know what it means to be treated well and know what to do for self-care, which is very important for mental health and everything else. But they were my inspiration because I would always have conversations. Mimi is an educator by passion. I'm an engineer by degree and an educator by passion. And so I'm always teaching and explaining and sharing with them. But when you do this, this is what can happen. And I didn't realize, Lamar told me, Mom, you taught us to be problem solvers. I didn't know that's what I did. I just did it because that's what I am, a problem solver. So I'm teaching my granddaughters, be problem solvers. and to work on their emotions. Not that anything's wrong with emotion, but when you get emotional and you can't function, Mimi can't understand what you're saying. So get yourself together, get it on out, get yourself together, and then tell me what you want to need. Because I can't, I can't function with all of that. So working with them and talking to them and encouraging them was the impetus for me to do this book. Because I would always say, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they would say different things, and then we would try out different things so that they can get exposed even more. And as a result, all the things I could be when I see me was created. I took several of our conversations over multiple times together and condensed them into one weekend for the book. And so I mentioned over 22 professions and provide women of color who have done the things that my grandbaby said that they want to do. And a couple of the women I knew personally, I reached out to them and got quotes from them. So I have a quote from an Olympic medalist in here, a friend of mine from Trotwood High School, LaVonna Martin, mentioned, I got some words of encouragement from her. And I also talked to Chicago's first woman and woman of color chief deputy fire commissioner. And so I got encouraging words from her and put that in the book. And I have resources in the book. It's just because of my babies. I wanted them to understand that they could be whatever they want to be. I don't care what color your skin is, because the world will tell you because you're brown, something wrong with you. I wanted my babies to know that's not true. You can be whatever you want to be president, you can be president, you know, and encourage them to do those things. And as a result, I've helped a lot of girls across the world. I'm excited.
That's good. And our last show we had Michelle Person, who was in your author's corner at the African American Culture Festival, and we really dove into why representation matters. And of course, we know that does matter. And one thing that I always wonder, you know, with speaking to her and things that I always think about, period, is what age group is the biggest reading group, especially when it comes to the African American community?
Well, that's a good question, and I can't answer that question because I don't know. What I will tell you is that the experts say that a child's personality is formed between the ages of 1 to 5. Whoever that child is going to be, their brain is set, their personality is set, but the first 1 through 7. So it's important that we as parents read to our children, expand their minds, expand the vocabulary, teach them and show them what they can and can't be. Not that they can't change after age 7, because we know anything is possible. But if you want your child to exceed and excel, you got to get them in this first 1 through 7. And at those years, of course, and when Lamar, I know y'all know my baby boy, well, my oldest son, when Lamar was in the womb, both of my sons, I counted to 10, I spelled their names, I read to them, I spoke to them, I tapped and said the ABCs. So at Lamar's first birthday, he could spell his name, his first name, he could count to 10, and he could say his ABCs. Well, that didn't come by happenstance. I didn't sit around with flashcards. I spoke to him early in the womb. And so the sooner we start teaching our babies and training our babies that they have value, they have worth, you are important, you are beautiful, you are kind, you are smart, all of that, the sooner we start teaching them that, building their confidence, building their self-esteem, showing them that they have options beyond what they see, the more likely they are to excel in life, whether that means going to college, starting a business, or whatever. So we have to start early. But to your question as to who is the highest, who reads the most in that age and our demographic, I don't know. I don't think chocolate people as grown folks, we don't seem to do a lot of reading. So I would say it's probably the younger kids, but that's just my assumption.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree. Like when we were expecting, we both, my wife read to both of them. I used to put headphones on her stomach. Her grandmother read to them, to the point where when our daughter was born and she came in the room to see her, that was the first time she opened her eyes. She already knew her voice.
I know that voice, absolutely. And that makes a difference for a child. I mean, we know what the media wants to say about Black fathers in the house or single moms, we don't love our children and all that other buffoonery. But we have to teach our children differently. Because if all they hear is what the media tells them or the system tells them or the school or whatever, their friends, whatever, if that's all they know and all they hear, if we don't fortify them at home, then we're setting them up for failure. It's not fair for a parent to not teach their child anything and send them to kindergarten and then want to head, rock, and gooseneck when their child got bad grades. Hello, how come your baby don't know his name, let alone spell it, before he gets to school? They ought to know your name ain't mama. Mama's not your name. Now you got lost. Where your mama? Who's your mama? Mama. What in the world? I can't help you if you don't know your mama's name. What's your phone number? Now I will say a lot of people don't know phone numbers anymore, but I taught my sons phone numbers plus the area code.
Oh, most definitely.
Right.
So real quick before we have to have you come back because I have some. We got to dive deep into that one. So let's talk about the forbidden secrets of the Goody box. So we don't want to give too much away because we want people to buy the book. So give me just three key pieces of advice that we need to be looking at as women and or men when it comes to relationships.
So let me tell you, Lady Bounce, that's a loaded question, but I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability. So the forbidden secrets of the Goody box, and that website is thegoodyboxbook.com, and Goody is Goody, thegoodyboxbook.com. My purpose for that book was to help women make better relationship choices and decisions, not to manipulate men, but to manage their emotions. I am very left brain dominant. I'm an engineer. I was a math instructor and an engineer. Both of them are gone. But I am very left brain dominant in my thinking and my processing. And so what happens for women, maybe nugget number one, is to understand that there is a major difference in how women think and how men think. Women tend to be more right brain, which is emotions, feeling, intuition, creativity. Men tend to be more left brain, logic, compartmentalizing, rationalizing, analysis, fact finding. That's why a man can have sex with a woman and have no feelings for her. Because for him, he compartmentalized it. He separated his feelings. That's the same reason why a man can go to war and fight shoulder to shoulder with another man and not be afraid, but fight through the fear to go to battle to save his country or defend his family. So there's a lot of differences when it comes to men and women. I think another thing that what I tell my women to do is make sure you understand and that there are 4 different types of male hunters. Well, yes, men hunt in packs, don't you? I'll pick your fence. I ain't gonna ask you which one. I know which one you are now. I might ask. Well, I'm not even gonna ask you which one you were. I'm not putting you out there like that. But so right now, as a married man, my assumption is that he's a companion, and he's the type of man that most women desire to have. In that he's committed, he's monogamous, he's faithful, he's doing the work, he's that all-in father. That's the type of that's the type of man that most women desire to have. However, the other 3 types of hunters are the ones that most women tend to run into. Let me tell you something. I met all 3 of them jokers before I met my husband. All 3 of them. I'm gonna tell you 2 of them. One of them, we run out of time. The main one, and the one that is most obvious, is the predator. The predator is, if you think of the movie Boomerang. Now, y'all old enough to know Boomerang. When I talk to some of the young girls and I say Boomerang, they say, Boomer what? I'm like, come on now. That's a classic black movie. Y'all ain't saying Boomerang? I know you're 19. I never even heard of it. Gone somewhere with that. Anyway, so Boomerang, Eddie Murphy was the predator. He even had the nerve to go when he sees somebody cute and cock his head like the Victor RCA dog. Like, ooh, I'm gonna get some of that. And he was very intentional on his attempts and his successes in getting women and their goodies. Now, y'all know what I mean by goodie, right? Everybody clear on goodie? Okay. So he was very intentional, very direct, and matter of fact about what he wanted. He would get it and then he went on his way. A lot like a shark in the animal kingdom, a shark can detect, attack, and then consume its prey. They can smell blood in the water up to 2 miles away. So this particular hunter is very cunning. He's looking for the woman who is wounded, the woman who is weak, the woman who is vulnerable, the woman who is feeling some kind of way about the past relationship. And he attacks her because she's an easy win. Yeah. And then there's 2 other hunters. I ain't gonna tell you on them. Thegoodyboxbook.com. So understand that men hunt in packs. Understand that women need to manage their emotions. And one thing I like to tell women when I'm sharing relationship advice is to make sure that you are clear on what you want in a relationship. For whatever reason, women expect men to be mind readers. I think that is the most foolish thing. You ought to know how I feel. You ought to know what I need. You ought to know what I want. Let me tell you something. If he could read your mind, he probably would have left a long time ago. Because he'd be like, oh, she's trying to kill me. She don't love me. I got to go. So you have to be sure and communicate what you want and need. And the best way to do that and time to do that is before you're in a relationship. If you wait till you get in a relationship and you're in that ooey gooey mushy phase, everything he does is wonderful. He talks wonderful. He looks wonderful. Even when he goes to the bathroom, it smells flowery. All that foolishness that you feel when you first get into a relationship. That's Eros love. That's that stupid love, make you do stupid stuff. It only lasts on average 2 years. If you haven't built a solid foundation in your relationship, when the ooey gooey is gone, what are you gonna stand on? So women have to be clear and understand what they want out of a relationship, understand the different dynamics between men and women and the differences in how we think, communicate, and act, what we expect out of a relationship. Just because he take you on 3 dates don't mean he your boyfriend. Y'all, the girls get mad at me. They're like, you for the guys. I'm for what's right. You can't assume because you went out on 3 dates with him, he your man. Did y'all have a conversation about that? You're making an assumption. He probably got 3 or 4 different girls on the side. You just one of them. If he didn't commit to you, you can't get mad if you see him out with somebody else. Now, we will get mad, but you shouldn't. He never committed to you. So don't make assumptions. Talk about what you want. Communication. Oh, it's so much. We could do this for a whole nother 3 hours.
So with all this going on in the world and the different types of men and women and things like that, what is it that you do for self-care?
Ooh, okay. I got a couple things that I do. Something like I said, I didn't start doing until later in life. So like I get my nails done. I just got them done. Now that's not really a self-care thing, but I like the way my nails look. So I feel better. That's self-care. So I get my mani-pedi, and I get the deluxe. I go in there and said, I want the deluxe. So they get all the extra stuff. All the, massage, the heat towels, all of that. I want it all. So I do that. But another thing that I do, 2 other things that I do on a regular basis for self-care is, 1, I get a full body massage. Joseph Bush of Helping Hands Massage does my massage. I get massages. I try to go every month. For the most part, up until COVID, I did go once a month. I love it. Full body massage. Yes, Lord. And then the other thing that I do on a regular basis is she's not a therapist, but she does therapeutic type work. It's called emotional polarity technique. So I go into this young lady, her name is Chanel Wilson. She has a practice out with Premier Family out in Centerville. And she uses the touch technique to find those deep-rooted, deep-seated issues, concerns, hurts, wounds that affect the way you move in life. So some things go way back to my childhood. Some things go even further back than that. One time she asked me, what happened when you were 9 months old? What happened to your mother when she was, girl, bye. But what happens is, what we need to understand is, as women, we carry our eggs are in us, and any females that we have of the eggs that end up being female, they also have eggs. So now if something happens to my grandmother, my mother felt it, I feel it, right? And so we have all these, the Bible says we are born in sin and shaped in iniquity. So we come into the world already coming with hurt and issues and abandonments from something we had nothing to do with. Then to have our own life experiences put on top of that, you build up these walls, you build up this anger, you build up this resentment and bitterness, and you move in the world based on what's going on in the back of your mind. Oftentimes we do things and don't really understand why. And lots of times, if you think about the app on your phone, it's listening to you saying what you want to do. You know what, I'm hungry. I think next thing you know, you got all these food recipes and menus popping up on your Facebook feed and on your phone and Siri, like, you say you're hungry, I got some restaurant, so it's all kind of stuff, listening to what you're doing, and your brain works the same way. All the memories that some of you may have remembered and forgotten and pushed aside and can't even recall, they are still running in the back of your mind, dictating how you move in the world, who you choose to be with and who you don't choose to be with. Because the issue that you had with your daddy or your mama, now you picking companions who are similar to your mama and your daddy because you didn't resolve that issue. That's how we move in the world. So Chanel helps me to call those things out. She calls it find it, fix it, and forget it. When I tell you I done put so many chocolate people on my forgiveness list, and some of them pop back up, I gotta forgive them again. But what happens is not for them, it's for me. So I can move differently in the world. I can talk to people and I can respond to people and I can do things without having any ulterior motive, without expecting anything in return. Now, that don't mean I'm gonna be skinning and grinning in your face. I forgive you, but I ain't got to fool with you no more.
Right.
Because see, me holding unforgiveness is like you drinking poison, me drinking poison and expecting you to die. So I'm holding on to this stuff and it causes physiological harm. It affects your organs. It causes hypertension and high blood pressure and strokes. And I ain't got time for that because of something you did to me. I'm gonna let you put me in the grave early. I ain't doing that. So I gotta forgive you and push on. I see you, hey, keep it moving. Don't come over and try to have a conversation because we're not there. But I done gave you to Jesus. I want the best for you. Keep it moving.
Word up.
Yep.
And before we get out of here, let's get into my favorite part of the show. Doom, 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 doom. Brain science.
All right, so this week we're talking to a writer this week. This whole month we've been talking to writers about writing books. So today I'm going to give you the brain science behind training your brain to become a writer. We already know, we've talked about a lot of times about training your brain takes time. So here are some key activities that you can do to train your brain to become a good writer. So first, you need to free write for at least 2 minutes every day, no matter what it is. And if it's several different ideas, you might want to get several different notebooks and free write on this topic in each different notebook. And before you know it, it may turn into a whole book. Then you want to read your writing goals. So if you're a writer and you're a reader, you have your idols. Who are your favorite writers? Read some of the things that they've written. Look up their bios, watch interviews that they've been a part of to see what they did to get to where they are, if that's where you're trying to be. Look things up. Research. I cannot say it enough that we all have the same internet. There is no reason not to research. Then you want to overwhelm your brain sometimes. Test your limits. Write for an hour. Write for 2 hours. See if you can expand that into 3 hours. Before you know it, you're training your brain to think more positive. It trains your brain to even problem solve because you're always thinking. You're less in that emotional brain that we talked about earlier and more into your thinking brain. And then sometimes, like Valerie said, you don't think about it too much. Sometimes you write a little bit, you put that thing down, you come back in a week or two and write on it so that you don't get bored of it or you get tired of it or you start to not think as logically when you go to write because you've seen it just too much. So to become an expert writer, you have to work at it, dedicating a lot of time and practice to your craft. And luckily, all we have is time. You got plenty of time to come up with these ideas. And the best thing to do is always talk to somebody, not your good girlfriend that you go kicking and drinking it with. Talk to your girlfriend that's got good logical sense, that's going to give you good advice. Maybe even that is the person to put on your team to help you proofread when you get to that point of writing. Keep working hard, work on your self-care. Writing is and can be very therapeutic, even if you don't publish what you write. Sometimes you just gotta write it, forget it, throw it away. And it is the best, for me, I use that as self-care. Sometimes when things are bothering me, I write it all down. I figure out what I can control and what I can't control, and then I throw it all away and I move on. So
those are great points. Phenomenal. I can tell you did your brain science. That's great. Because look, those are all the things that I tell my clients. And a couple other things I would like to add in there is aromatherapy. There are certain calming scents and relaxing scents and scents that create an environment conducive for creativity. Sounds, writing near water. So I have a fountain on my tabletop. There's certain sounds, but the trickling of water and moving water can help with their creativity. And I also have a sound machine down here, and it's got 6 different options. One being just white noise, but rainwater, rushing ocean waves, all those things help to get your mind in the right space to write. And lastly, orange is the color of creativity. Now, I just got my nails done, and they were orange before. But orange, either wear orange highlighter, have orange in your space, but orange is another conduit for creativity. Those were great. She did her brain science research. Go ahead.
And real quick before we get out of here, tell the people how they can get in touch with you.
So the best way to reach me is my website, penofthewriter.com, penofthewriter.com. And all my other pages for my books, The Forbidden Secrets of the Goody Box, thegoodyboxbook.com is on that same website. My children's book, Things I Can Be, is on that website. So that's the best way to reach me. My email is the same, info@penofthewriter.com, info@penofthewriter.com. And then I have a 888 number. Want to call me, 888-802-1802. I will tell you, however, that if you call that number, after 6 o'clock, it's gonna go straight to voicemail. And if you call on the weekend, it's going to voicemail. That's my business line. It only rings from 9 to 6, Monday through Friday.
My office hours are.
You say what?
My office hours are.
Absolutely. Because some people, if they get your direct phone number, they calling and texting. I got people literally all over the world. If they text me when they felt like texting me, I might feel some kind of way.
Right. And of course, you can find us wherever you social media at. We're on Facebook, IG, Twitter, Instagram. You can listen to the podcast anywhere you find your favorite podcast. And we would like to thank you, Miss Valerie J. Lewis. Tell Lamar we said what's up. And we got to have you back on here because we didn't even touch the surface yet. So Thank you for being a part of the show. It's your boy Picket Fence.
I'm Lady Bounce.
We out of here. Peace.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed myself.